Okay, so in this experiment, I'm going to play around with creating a basic bouncing ball in CrazyTalk, but I'm going to begin by actually drawing the actual ball inside of Flash. In order to do this, I'm going to use the assistance of Toon Titan. So I'm going to load up Toon Titan into Flash. I'm going to go ahead and start drawing a ball. Notice that whatever the colors inside of Toon Titan are the colors that are being used inside of Flash. So I'm just gonna, this is gonna be a basic ball, so I'm gonna switch to the red right here because I want to create a clear separation, just so I can have a little nice little cell shading effect. Just so it doesn't look so flat. Alright, so now let's find a color for my little ball. That color looks kind of nice. Reduce the highlight a bit, reduce the shadow, adjust the color of the outline. Alright, that's good enough. So let's just fill it in. Get rid of that guideline. Adjust the size of my, well, change the color first, and then adjust the size of my strokes just so it can be a little bit more visible. And number 3 should be more than enough. I'll convert that into a symbol just for the heck of it, with the registration point right in the center, and I'm going to export it using Puppet Producer. Puppet Producer has this little let me move it over here. Sometimes I like keeping them on the same panel so I can just switch between them. Puppet Producer has this little button here for exporting like selected objects. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to select, actually, well, the selected frame. I can also use selected symbol. So I'm gonna go ahead and click on that. Put it on the desktop. Ball prop. Oh, it's looking for a folder. We'll just put it right there then. Select folder. So when we look on our desktop, it should be right there. Okay, so that's good. I'm just gonna drop it into CrazyTalk, and there's my ball. So this ball is treated as a prop. So I select it. I can go in here, place the ball right there. Motion key editor. Squash it down a bit. And unfortunately, the range of motion that I can achieve out of this ball is very limited. I can squash it like this, but it's not a very natural, because when this ball impacts the floor, the bottom part should actually be a little bit flatter and the top more of a kind of like the top of an egg. So it's not very natural motion. Okay, so here we have one keyframe. Here we have the next one. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna twist this a little bit like this, and make it so that at the very least it looks somewhat natural. We're going to do a little bit of a settle right here, try to regain its form. And then back to the floor. Then we go back up. And we settle up there. Then we go back to the floor. Then we go back up. And at this point it's out of the frame, so we're not going to worry about it anymore. Rewind. Still not very natural. We start adjusting the timing. Okay. It's not a very natural motion either way. It's very synthetic. Okay, so we get the idea of how that would go. It's either way, it's not a very natural type of motion because of the limits you have on the actual shape itself. So let's try something else this time. I'm gonna go to Flash. This time we're gonna go into Puppet Producer. I'm gonna treat it like a puppet character. I'm going to assign this to the hip region of a generic character. So, boom, puts a pivot point right there. And we're going to go here, export. Oh, I guess I could do this too, but no, let's just export it as a regular. Export movie, ball, actor. So now we go back to CrazyTalk, and let's see, we don't have a revert option, so I'm just going to Control Z my way all the way back as far as I can go. Oh, I could just delete it. So let's see how this goes. We're going to go to Window, Content Manager, Actor, Character. We'll bring any character in here. We're going to go into the character composer and import an SWF template. And ball actor, there it is. Alright. So it's a little bit off balance. I mean, but that's okay. We just move it. I think somewhere like that should do it. Okay, so now we're going to go back to the regular editor. This time, this ball is treated more like a actor. It's treated like an actor because it is. It's not treated as a prop. So we're gonna use this line as our floor line here, and I'm gonna go to the 2D editor, Okay, turn that 2D editor on so I can do all this type of stuff with it. I guess I can't rotate it because it's the hip, but I can move it. We're going to use the deform function. And we're going to place it right there. We're going to go a couple frames forward. Alright. We're going to go a couple frames forward. Bring it up there. And what's cool is that I can actually see this little line thing here. I'm going to go frame 20. We're going to bring it there. Go to frame 30. We're going to do that. Actually, we're going to do it like this, just to create the illusion of a little bit of more physics. And go to 40. We go to 50. We go to 60. Go to 70. And by the time it gets to 80, it should be out of the frame. So at the basic level, right now it looks like this. Alright, so what we could do now is go into our 2D editor. Actually, let me exit out of there. Go to frame 10. Now we switch to the 2D editor again. Okay. 20. Alright. We give it a much better squash. Go to 30. At the top of the action, it should pretty much be, well, I guess I could do that. You know, it should be as close to its original shape as possible when it's on that, at that height. Okay, so we'll do that. We'll deform it. We'll kind of squash it towards the direction that it's moving. We'll go to 50. At 50, it should regain its shape again. 60. Once again, it's being squashed, but it's not coming from a higher, as high of an angle this time, so the squash is not as extreme. Do that, and 80. Okay, so let's take a look at what we have so far. Okay, a little bit better. So now we're gonna add an extra squash somewhere in the middle in the direction that it's traveling. Okay, and now it's going up again, so up. So as it goes up, I want it to deform in the direction that it's traveling. And as it goes down, I also want it to deform in the direction that it's traveling. There we go here. It's going up. So that's its height right there. So again, we want it to deform in the direction that it's traveling. And it goes up. Okay, let's see what that looks like. Okay, kind of looks like a water balloon, bouncing water balloon now. But you can see that the physics and like the way it moves is a little bit more natural, has a more of an organic nature to it. Alright, so let's reset the user interface for a minute so I can be able to demonstrate something else at this point. Basically, now that everything's been animated, at least at a rudimentary level, something kind of looks like that. Doesn't look too bad. Kind of a bouncing water balloon type of thing. I mean, the deformation is actually not that bad. Let's go to the timeline here real quick, and let's see here. Well, let me select this first. When you select your object, you can see the path of the actual animation. This is something that I guess only really happens with when you're manipulating the transformation of an object. The cool thing is about this is that you can visually readjust the transformation points. So we can have something that looks like this. Alright, also one other trick is that if you don't need all these frames, okay, so here I guess we'll call it 80 frames. We're going to change the number of frames on the timeline to 80. That way it gives us just these, and we can turn on the looping option. So when we test something, we could just let it play, and it'll loop over and over and over, and we get a better sense of what we're working with. Alright, so I'm not too concerned about the motion on its way up. I mean, that looks okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to I'm going to rewind this. Then I am going to, let's see here, where is my, there we go, transform. This way I can view where all my transformation key points are, my keyframes. So here, let's play around with the easing in and easing out. I'm going to right click on it, transition curve, ease out. So when we ease out, notice that the software adds more frames as it gets higher, and this is actually something that we want, because as the ball bounces high, it gets away from the center of the earth. Gravity starts acting on it a little bit more, and it starts losing speed, so it eases out. So the slower, the higher it gets, the more frames it needs to give that illusion of getting slower. Alright, on its way down, we could probably just leave it as linear, but if you want to make it a little more extreme, you can have it ease in, so it'll start slow again, and as it gets lower and lower, gravity starts acting on it, and there's less frames, so it appears faster, which will give it its momentum again so that it can bounce again. So let's right click on that, transition curve, ease in. So then we have something that looks like that. Okay. All right. The other thing, well, let's go ahead and finish this. So we have, and if you hover, you can see what you're using here. Ease in. So for the next one, we're going to choose an ease out. Again, for the next one, ease in. Then we ease out. Then ease in. Then we gotta make sure these are selected. Ease out, and one more time, ease in. So now, with that bit of additional physics applied to it, we have something that looks like that. Okay, now it's still very unnatural the way, I mean, a little more natural, but unnatural because of the way that it kind of just goes up, kind of pauses, and you know, it doesn't need to be that, you know, extreme. So we are going to go to the transition curve and choose custom. We're going to reduce it. I'm just going to do every other one first. Makes it easier. Just so it's not that extreme. Alright, let's take a look at that now. Okay, now let's do these. Reduce. Reduce. And reduce. And reduce. Let's see. Okay. Maybe reduce it some more. A little bit more. A little bit more. Let's take a look at that. Okay. Let's try this. And do that. It's a little bit better. Now let's switch from linear to curve. And that gives it even more of an organic nature to it. Alright, now a lot of this at this point has to do with the amount of deformation that's taking place in the ball itself. So the only way to make it look more natural is, I guess, we can make these points a little bit more separate, I mean further apart from each other. Or we can go back and readjust the amount of squash and stretch that's being applied to it so it's not as extreme. So imagine this animation here, put some legs on it, some eyes, and you have yourself a very beautiful jumping frog, you know, jumping from one lily pad to another. Alright, so that's my experiment for today. I hope this gives you guys some ideas on how to approach the animation process inside of CrazyTalk Animator. There's a lot more that you can do if you leave the manual behind and start experimenting with features and you know, go beyond the manual. You know, stop thinking that just because a feature is there you have to use it, or because it hasn't been documented that you can't use it. I mean, this particular thing is something that's fairly standard in pretty much, well, animation in general, and it's the basis for all sorts of movements, whether it's you know, a bouncing frog, a ball, throwing a water balloon against the wall, anything. So, you know, make use of these features, and I look forward to seeing what you guys can come up with.